Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight. I'm Roger Johnson. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Our top story. Hundreds of patients waiting days in A&E for a bed on the ward. We'll reveal the scale of the NHS emergency care crisis.
I was in corridors from Monday until Thursday evening in the same clothes that I arrived in, and I think probably in the same bedding on the trolley.
Senior doctors say it's costing lives. The figures follow an investigation by this programme. Also tonight, you will be prosecuted. The Preston fly tippers being targeted after dumping rubbish on an old railway. Tonight's the night for the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park after 150 years of blue and red rivalry.
I'm a little bit choked, to be honest. I'm a little bit took back by the whole thing. There's nowhere like it. There's nowhere like Goodison Park, and there never ever will be ever again.
And it's been grey for days, hasn't it? But the good news is something a little bit more optimistic tomorrow. Join me at the end of the programme. I'll have the full forecast.
Tonight we uncover the true extent of the continuing crisis in the region's accident and emergency departments. Last year, more than 38,500 patients were waiting for more than a day to be admitted, and 1,000 waited longer than 3 days. One expert in emergency care says that across the country, thousands of lives could be at risk. With this exclusive report, here's our health correspondent, Jill Dummigan.
In the last few years, a disturbing new trend has emerged in our A&Es.
So I'm on a trolley in a corridor with goodness knows how many other people the queue seem to go on forever.
Patients waiting days to be admitted because there are no free beds.
So for the people who are waiting for our general medical beds, they've just spent their second night in the department.
Experts warn that the situation could be costing thousands of lives across the country.
For every 72 people who stay more than 12 hours, there's one additional death.
But we've discovered that in the North West alone in 2024, over 38,500 patients stayed more than twice that length of time in hospital A&Es. 80-year-old Colin Gray is one of them.
So I was in corridors from Monday until Thursday evening in the same clothes that I arrived in, and I think probably in the same bedding on the trolley.
On December the 30th, Colin had been taken by ambulance to Arrow Park Hospital in the Wirral with heart problems.
Well, it was just a mass of trolleys. A lot of them were attended by paramedics who'd come in from the ambulances, so obviously they weren't able to go out.
The hospital was just days away from declaring a critical incident because it couldn't cope with the number of patients. Colin laid on his narrow trolley and waited and waited.
I found it demoralising, frustrating. There's constant noise from other patients, comings and goings of beds being moved. You know, you're thinking, where is this going? How long is this going on for?
In Arrow Park last year, 3,774 patients waited in A&E for longer than 24 hours for a bed on a ward, and that's a pattern repeated around this region. In the North West as a whole, more than 38,500 patients were stuck in A&E for longer than a day. Around 1,000 waited for more than 3 days, and 225 were there for more than 4 days. In fact, the longest wait was just over a week.
The emergency department, we're geared up, we're absolutely the right space for the acutely ill patients when they come in. We're the wrong space for someone to spend days of their admission in.
In December, I was in the Royal Preston reporting on flu and COVID admissions. At that point, some patients were waiting more than 2 days to be admitted there.
The lights don't switch off, the noise doesn't go down, it doesn't become peaceful at night. It's not a good place for people to rest and start recuperating and recovering once that initial stage is over. They're looked after by the staff, we get the beds for them, but it's not the space they need to be in.
A national study by the Royal College of Nursing in December found 9 out of 10 nurses believed patient safety was at risk. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine says corridor care is unacceptable and dangerous.
There's good scientific data that shows that long stays are harmful. For every 72 people who stay more than 12 hours, there's one additional death. We're in a ridiculous situation where we're making people sicker before we make them better.
Both organisations have called on the government to prioritise tackling long waits in A&E.
So if we don't fix this problem and the problems we've got and we don't fix corridor care, I'm worried we'll lose staff and we'll be here again next year having the same conversations about thousands of avoidable deaths.
NHS England says they understand the impact on affected patients and they're working to improve the situation. They add, though, that they are doing well for the large majority of patients. Colin's now recovering at home. How does it make you feel about the idea, you know, if anything happened, of going back to A&E now?
I wouldn't go back. I can't think of a situation where I would accept going to A&E. I really can't.
So it's worth knowing that there are big variations around the region. If we look at patients waiting longer than 24 hours to be admitted to a ward, we can see that the largest number was at the Royal Blackburn, more than 6,000, although that's also one of the largest and busiest A&Es in the country, so not hugely surprising. The Countess of Chester is a comparatively smaller hospital, but still had nearly 5,000 day-plus waits. Now, if we look at the other end of the scale, North Manchester General, another busy hospital, had just 166, and in Furness General in Barrow, just 51. In general, this whole issue was much less acute in Greater Manchester than Merseyside, Cheshire and Lancashire, and that becomes really obvious when you look at these very long waits over 4 days. The trust with the highest number was the Countess of Chester, followed by the Royal Blackburn, Arrow Park and the Royal Preston. Now, most of those at the Royal Blackburn and Arrow Park were mental health patients waiting to be transferred to a mental health hospital. We've coloured that in red here. So that indicates pressure in that system as well. And it's worth remembering that most of this is because of problems in other parts of the health and social care system, which mean people who could leave hospital can't because there's nowhere to care for them. Now, there's an online article to go with this. You can look on there and see what happened at your hospital last year, unless that hospital is Wigan Infirmary, Southport General or Wiston, as those trusts declined to give us the information.
Jill Dummigan there, our health correspondent, reporting live on the state of A&E and those long waits. Now let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines in the northwest tonight. And a homeless camp in central Manchester is to be removed after the City Council won a court ruling. It secured a possession order against scores of people, many of them asylum seekers, living in tents next to the town hall. An inquest into the death of the RuPaul Drag Race star, the Vivian Heard performer, 32-year-old James Lee Williams, was found dead in the bathroom of their Cheshire home last month. A post-mortem found an unnatural cause of death, but police say there were no suspicious circumstances. The hearing was adjourned. Andrew Malkinson, who served 17 years in prison for a rape in Salford which he did not commit, has received the first part of a compensation payment. Mr Malkinson had his conviction quashed in 2023. He was wrongly convicted in 2004 and chances to free him were repeatedly missed. Items belonging to the Cumbrian walker and writer Alfred Wainwright have gone on show at the Armit Museum in Ambleside ahead of the 70th anniversary of his first book. They include a previously unpublished photograph of Wainwright, artwork and 2 copper printing plates. A disused railway line in Preston, which has been blighted by fly tipping and antisocial behaviour, is being transformed into an urban oasis by local community groups. Volunteers there have begun to clear what is 40 years' worth of rubbish from the trackbed. They're getting some assistance there from staff from Network Rail. Phil Cunliffe has been to take a look.
Unofficially, this is Preston's biggest rubbish dump.
It's disgraceful. We've found vast quantities of nappies that people have just chucked. Baby chairs, a sink, a bath, carpets, lots of carpets people have chucked.
Every discarded item strewn along this former trackbed in Deepdale has been chucked over a wall or fence. It's an eyesore, and Andy has had enough.
There's just a bit of a culture on this line of chucking the rubbish in. We need to change it. It's convenient for them. They're lazy and they're criminals.
In partnership with Network Rail, who own the site, Andy is leading a community action to clean up the mess.
As volunteers, we'll move the rubbish. There's another group cutting the trees, making it a pathway for everyone, and the Network Rail are going to shift the rubbish from here. When you think there is about at least 100 tonnes of rubbish on this line.
It's only about 10 years since Network Rail spent hundreds of thousands of pounds clearing this site, only for it to become a dumping ground again. Dealing with the consequences of fly tipping is one thing, but how do you actually stop it?
We want people to value this area of their local community. We want people to see what it could be and to buy into the future of it. So we've got some covert cameras that will be going up, so we'll be watching. We're also looking at the types of rubbish that we're finding. So if we can link people's names to any of the rubbish that's tipped, then people will be found and they will be prosecuted.
A lot of progress has already been made. In just a few days, volunteers have filled around 50 builders' bags with rubbish.
Well, Annie, look at the state of this place. It's absolutely horrible, isn't it? Some of the stuff that's been dumped down here. What is your vision for this area, for this cutting?
To make a wildlife corridor, not just for the wildlife, but to introduce all that biodiversity so that people, the residents of Preston, can come and enjoy it. Where they can cycle, where they can walk, where they can actually take in fresher air than what you've got on the other side of those terraced houses where all the cars are going.
The plan is to transform a mile of railway cutting while also tackling the causes of fly tipping.
So how long will it take you to do this work?
I estimate a year. We've actually cleared nearly 50 metres already because of the determination of volunteers. You've loads of really good people here. Remember COVID? People stood up, didn't they? They came, they got on with it. Well, it's the same with this line.
Phil Cunliffe, BBC North West Tonight, Preston.
It's a mess, isn't it? A lot of former railway lines, after the beaching cuts, of course, have been transformed into cycleways, including the Guild Wheel in Preston. But the former Olympic gold medalist, Sir Chris Boardman, has welcomed a multi-million-pound investment to create more walking and cycling routes in the North West. The government says it's providing more than £40 million to fund healthier alternatives to car journeys, particularly in the morning rush hour.
This will fund about 30 million more active journeys, so cycling and walking, mostly walking actually, to school every day. And we're going to work with over 4,000 schools. And the spin-off effects are for everybody because 20% of the traffic in the morning is school runs. And we think this will reduce those journeys by 6 million a year. So everybody gets the benefit. Greater Manchester's well on the way with the B network that they're putting in place.
So Chris Boardman and those cyclists on the piazza at Media City in Salford. I've been known to cycle my bike to work across there from time to time. Now, if you grew up in the North West in the 1960s, you may well remember hanging out at a milk bar. Do you remember them? National Milk Bars had 17 branches at the height of their popularity. They were filled with teenagers drinking milkshakes and frothy coffee. See, that cafe culture is not such a new thing after all. But after launching nearly 100 years ago, there is now only one branch of the Milk Bars still open. It's at Ellesmere Port, and Katie Barnfield's been for a visit.
Tucked away in a shopping centre in Ellesmere Port is a little slice of history. This is the last remaining National Milk Bar, a North West chain launched almost 100 years ago. Alisan bought it 4 years ago and saved it from shutting its doors.
The old owner, he was trying to close it down, so then I took over and it's work.
Were you surprised to hear this was the last one when you found that out?
Yeah, after I took over, I've been told it was very famous. So I got a customer, she's over 80. She came to me, she said, you know, I used to work here. What?
National Milk Bars were founded by dairy farmer Robert William Griffith in 1933 to sell his produce straight to the public in things like milkshakes and cream cakes. They exploded in popularity, and at their height there were 17 branches across North West England and Wales. In the 1960s, the Liverpool Lime Street branch could apparently count the Beatles among its customers. But with changing tastes over the decades, the branches have dwindled to just one. Those dining here today say it still provides something few other places can.
You come in and you feel as though you're amongst friends. Everybody knows each other by name.
And the staff, I mean, they've known Jackson since he was in my wife's belly, and he's, you know, and they're so nice. Every time you come in, he's, you know, come and say hello, and just really friendly.
Very homely, yeah, very homely place.
We're here every day.
Every day?
Every day, bar Sunday. Hopefully, we're not going to lose this. Just keep going.
Although the menu has changed and the inside has been modernised, it still has the traditional signage, and Alisan is keen to bring more of its history back.
I know they were used to selling newspapers, they was doing fish and chips, so I'm going to put the fish and chips on as well.
Oh, you put it back on the menu?
Yeah.
Alisan is concerned about competition from the big coffee chains, some of which have now moved into neighbouring units. But with such loyal customers, he's hoping to keep this reminder of the past running well into the future. Katie Barnfield, BBC North West Tonight in Ellesmere Port.
Right, do you remember the milk bars? They're wonderful, weren't they? Good to see one still going strong. Right, we're going to move on to sport now. It is the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park tonight. It's been rearranged, of course, after the storm caused the postponement from a few weeks ago. Everton, of course, moved to their new home next season. So let's go live to Goodison in Liverpool to Richard Askham, who's there for us. And Richard, I guess this is one of those I was there nights.
Without question, Roger, yeah, there's, as you can see, so much emotion around this game tonight. The last ever Merseyside derby here at Goodison Park. More than 130, sorry if you heard some bad language there, more than 130 years after the first one back in 1894. Yeah, this will be the 120th Merseyside derby here. The Everton fans are determined to make the most of it. They greeted the team coach outside the stadium about 5:45 in very large numbers. Amazing atmosphere outside as well. You can only imagine what it's going to be like inside, and both managers want their team to embrace it.
Liverpool have always been a tough opponent, but at Goodison it always felt a lot easier because we had the support behind us and we had a fantastic crowd, and I think this game will be no different.
It's not the first time for these players that they are playing in atmospheres like this. So I hope that they can focus on what they have to do.
Very important, of course, at both ends of the table for Liverpool and for Everton. But the emotion here, there's all sorts of emotion, as you can tell, is all about Everton supporters. I spoke to one of them, Katie Carter, from one of the main Everton supporters groups, the 1878s, a short time ago.
Right now, you know, tonight will be the last time I'd ever see the lights there, so gliding down at the, you know, the green turf and over there at the so that's the thing what's got us more than anything is the last night game at Goodison.
How emotional is it going to be?
On a personal level, I'm a little bit choked, to be honest. I'm a little bit took back by the whole thing. It's unique, there's nowhere like it. There's nowhere like Goodison Park, and there never ever will be ever again. So you're tight to the pitch, you're close, it's in the middle of housing. It's got a church on the corner. No other club's got a church on the corner. Everything about it is just absolutely unique. It's still got wooden seats. Listen, it's a massive game, obviously. You know, just on a personal level, and like as like an Evertonian, you know, they want to win it, we want to win it. A lot at stake for both sides. What will be will be. At the end of the day, we've done it before. Can we do it again? I hope so, but you know, let's just see how tonight pans out.
Well, one young supporter who's certainly going to enjoy it tonight is an Australian called Mackenzie. He's 15 years old. He wanted to come. He was here actually for that first derby that was postponed. Well, he's here again tonight, courtesy of the club captain as well, Seamus Coleman, who's paid for his ticket. And he told me, Mackenzie, what it means to him.
So significant, and I've never been before. But, you know, obviously in just a few hours' time I will be sitting in that stadium watching Everton hopefully beat Liverpool.
You will. It's going to be emotional. And I need to ask you about Everton skipper Seamus Coleman. He's paid for your flight. I mean, what do you think of that?
I mean, what can't I think of it? You know, it's amazing, you know, to be able to be back here. I didn't think it was going to happen. I kept checking my bank account, seeing if I had enough, checking the flights, and I just didn't think it would happen. And you know, at the last minute, he's really swooped in and brought me over here.
What a thing, Seamus Coleman paying for his airline ticket as well. Amazing. So many derbies here, so many memories for Evertonians and for Liverpool as well. They've had 3 all draws in the 90s, 4 all draws in the 1980s as well. Even that first derby back in 1894 broke a record. 44,000 were here at Goodison Park. That was then a Football League record attendance. It's going to be some game, some atmosphere. Apologies if you did hear some bad language. It will be a great game, I'm sure. From Goodison Park, back to you.
Richard, thank you very much. Yeah, battling the bad language and the technology there a little bit, but we got the gist of it. And apologies, as Richard said, if he did hear some bad language while he was there surrounded by all those football fans. Guardiola didn't look too happy, did he? In the Championship, Preston North End are on a good run at the moment in all competitions, 4 wins in 5. They had a hard-fought 1-0 win at Norwich in the Championship last night. Milutin Zmajic with the goal for PNE. They are now 15th in the table. Now, just before the weather with Molly, they're going to stay with football, but with a slight difference. There probably aren't many international footballers who come from Cumbria, but one of them is England's leading lioness, a proud Barovian, Georgia Stanway. She now plays in Germany for Bayern Munich after making her name at Manchester City Women. And Sophie Mason has been talking to Georgia about swapping Barrow for Bavaria.
It's not every day that you get to watch the German title holders at training, but luckily for me, Lioness Georgia Stanway has invited me along to spend a little bit of time with her today to talk about what she's looking forward to this summer, what life's like here in Munich, and of course where it all started back in Cumbria.
I'm Georgia Stanway, FC Bayern Munich and England footballer, born and bred in Barrow. My community was massive for me. My community supported me from the day I started kicking a ball. I think the most important thing about Barrow is the people. Everybody calls it the end of the world. There's one road in and one road out, but when you're in, people don't leave because the people are so good.
Do you think that time at Furness Rovers played into who you are as a player now, that tenacity?
Playing with boys, living with boys, everything became a battle, whether it be who to finish their dinner first, who gets the front of the seat in the car. That's kind of what shaped me, definitely as a person, but I'd say even more as a player. That feistiness, the ability to want to put a tough tackle in.
What would that girl think of where you are now, here at Bayern Munich? What would you say to her?
I was always wanting to be the best at everything. I was always wanted to be first at everything. And I would tell myself not to put too much pressure on yourself every day because mistakes are good, mistakes allow things to happen, and to just try and, set myself a little bit more free. I really like it here. I think from the first week I arrived here, it felt like home straight away.
Not a bad place to call the office, this, is it?
It's very cool. To move to Munich was to try and better my career. I was at the City for 7 years. I'd come to a bit of a standstill where I felt like I just wanted something new. Bayern Munich come in, and for me it was a no-brainer. I was going into an environment where I didn't know anybody, and that's something that I really wanted and something that I wanted to embrace, because I feel like that's when you're out of your comfort zone, maybe the best things can happen.
Out of your comfort zone, she certainly is. Doing really well in Munich. Georgia Stanway there was talking to Sophie Mason. There'll be top coverage of the Euros. Of course, the Lionesses are playing at the Euros this summer on the BBC. BBC Radio Merseyside has coverage tonight from Goodison Park on the Everton-Liverpool Merseyside derby, the final Merseyside derby at Goodison. Hopefully, it looked like pretty fair weather for football, I thought. A little bit cold, plenty of steam and smoke in the air, Molly. They'll hopefully have a good night. Of course, the last game was stormed off. It was postponed. So.
Yeah, so should be a lot better than that. That's the good news. So it's been a bit like Groundhog Day, hasn't it? Today, again, days of grey, it seems. Lots of cloud about, staying dry for most of us, though. But you can see on the mountains, we did have a dusting of snow as well. Thank you very much for those lovely photos. And in terms of tomorrow, then, we are going to break the trend ever so slightly. So we are looking at a slightly brighter day. Now, there is going to be a fair bit of cloud about still, but we will see some sunshine, which is great, and then still feeling very cold. And this is why. So if you take a look here, we are drawing in this easterly breeze, which is bringing Scandinavian air, so very cold, very chilly, but high pressure still in charge. So we are keeping this low pressure system here at bay, so avoiding any weather fronts for the moment. The worst of it really having a little bit of drizzle, but largely dry weather on the whole, and this is the outlook for tonight. So you can see a fair bit of cloud to start off, but it breaks up quite nicely, and where we will have clear skies, there is a chance to see the snow moon tonight, so do keep an eye out for that. It is the last full moon of meteorological winter, but where there are clear skies, we know we will have some frost as well. So temperatures down to around -2 degrees, so it'll be a chilly start to your day tomorrow, but plenty of breaks in that cloud you can see, especially as we head towards the afternoon, but still that easterly breeze to contend with. So whilst we've got an average of around 5 degrees Celsius, it is going to feel colder than that. And then turning a bit greyer again on Friday. We will have some wintry showers, especially on the Isle of Man, but a lot of grey weather, many of us staying dry, feeling cold, that wind turning more southeasterly. Temperatures around 5 degrees Celsius, but feeling cold than that, as I said, because of that wind. And then as we head into the weekend, you can see temperatures staying very low, but feeling colder, but a bit more unsettled weather. But we should still see some brighter spells, Roger, which is nice after days of grey, really.
Yeah, it is nice, although it's been quite stable, hasn't it? I just keep thinking back to New Year and those terrible floods and the fact that actually a bit of calm is no bad thing.
It's welcome, isn't it?
I said the football was stormed off. I'm not sure that's an orthodox meteorological term, is it? It's just what you do when you're in a bad mood, I think. Thank you very much, Molly. And thank you, of course, for watching. See you tomorrow. Good night. Well done.